Now, when I first got my Hasselblad XPan some months ago, I was fairly convinced that I wouldn't be using it in woodland that much. I thought that was more the preserve of my square format Bronica. However, having found myself a little bit challenged lately in getting enthusiasm to come out into the forest, as you probably noticed from the lack of videos, I did think I'd bring the XPan this morning and see if it gave me something a bit different. Now, to give me a degree of comfort while shooting panoramics in the forest, which is something I'm not used to, as I've said, I have come to an area I'm fairly familiar with. I was struggling for the last hour or so walking around the forest in general and didn't really see things in a panoramic format. So I've come back to an area I have shot in the square format many times in the hope that familiarity with some of those compositions will rub off onto the XPan's somewhat elongated letterbox format. Now, I've got a very simple shot, not what I would have shot normally with the Bronica. I have these branches with their leaves in front of the trees. Now, I'm not sure I'll be able to hold all the depth of field. I've gone for a sort of semi-hyperfocal, but I'll have to take 2 or 3 frames to be certain. One of the issues with a rangefinder versus an SLR, sadly. But you're looking at about a second at f/16 with no filters in this very dark and gloomy forest, so let's see what we get. Now, I'll have to be honest with you here. This is something that's been on my mind for quite a while, but it's been highlighted today whilst coming out with the XPan that I am struggling with the panoramic format. I've had the camera for about 6 months, and I will level with you, I've not brought it out for 5 of those last 6 months. I had an initial flurry of activity with it, and since then it's almost paralysed my photography in a way which is it's been troubling me for a while, shall we say. And I'm starting to question whether I should actually keep the XPan or not. There are a couple of other things which trouble me about the XPan as well, and number one of those is its fragility and the inability to have a lot of the common faults repaired these days due to lack of parts and expertise. So I have a constant fear when I bring the camera out that if something breaks on it, something serious, I'm left with a paperweight or something that can only be used for spares. Now, that's quite a consideration when the camera and lens outfit. The basic camera and single lens costs about £3,000. Not such a problem with the Bronica. You can pick up another body for about £250, and I have 4 of them. So that weighs on my mind and also discourages me from carrying it into more hazardous environments or up mountains where I am likely to bash it or it might get wet. So yeah, it's a constant worry of mine that the thing is just going to die. And the other thing which is for me a problem and not for other people is the fact that the XPan is a rangefinder. Now, I have never got on with rangefinders, oddly enough. I had a Voigtlander Besser system 20 years ago, which I kept for about 6-8 months and convinced me I was never going to buy a Leica because I prefer SLRs. I like the SLR Bronica, like the Hasselblad 501 CM. I also find, I'll be honest, the automated nature of the XPan somewhat frustrating with the motor wind and the very small viewfinder, and general ergonomics of it aren't great. It's not as good as I expected it would be. I find myself preferring either a 35mm camera or a square format, medium format camera. Now, that's just personal taste. Everybody's different, but for me, it's just not gelling when I'm out using it. Well, to say that didn't go so well is a bit of an understatement. I really struggled so much that I went home and I felt sorry for myself. But I've come out again and I brought the trusty old Bronica. I think the inclusion of so many different aspect ratios and cameras is having a detrimental effect on my photography. So I will be making some fairly radical changes to my setup in the coming months and year. Nothing too quick, but things have got to go, I'm afraid. I've just got far too much stuff. Now, this is the sort of stuff I like, especially in the square format. Got the tree, lovely angle on it, some lovely roots showing, and also the tree's foliage is beautiful. There's a lot of light greens in there, yellows really, and that's going to work well in a square frame. So really just got to work out now the position and the focal length. Now I'm actually going to walk away from this shot because I spent 5 minutes trying to compose and I can't get a good angle. Now the reason is these two little so-and-sos here are ruining my composition. Now if I'll crop it actually, I'll show you. If I try to exclude them, the tree, the central tree, is too weak in the frame. And if I include them, it just unbalances it for me. And I've tried different angles coming in here. I've also gone for one where I work sort of over here. And, you know, just talk to you. None of it's working strong enough to justify shooting a frame with the Bronica. Yeah, I could take the shot and it'd be okay, but I just know it'd be okay. And what's the point of taking okay shots? Now, I'll be honest, I would normally set up a shot and then do a bit of video showing how the composition worked or didn't work, but I'm struggling here. Let me just point this down a little bit. Because what I'm doing for a change is I'm going for a much smaller scene. It's actually, let me get you the camera. It's actually, well, practically a macro shot of this beautiful little nettle growing here in an old tree stump. But problem is I cannot get a decent angle on it by coming in directly over the top, and I spent about 20 minutes. So I think I'm going to pull back a little bit and take it at a slight angle, but it's a real faff with a medium format film camera. Well, I've switched over to the 150mm short telephoto lens, and I've put a #1 close-up filter on because these things don't focus very close, and I haven't got my extension tubes with me. Now, I am not convinced, I'll be honest, by this. I've taken a lot of time setting it up and it's not as strong as I'd like, but I have spent a lot of time setting up, so I'm damn well going to take it. So let me just do a bit of metering. Now I'm shooting Ilford's Delta 400 today. It's quite dull, so I haven't got to worry too much about dynamic range because there isn't really any, but it's going to be f/22. 15th of a second, 15th of a second, yeah, 15th of a second at f/22. So I'll probably do it at a filter. No, I'm not going to use a filter. It's all pretty much of a muchness, the tones. So I'm going to go for an 1/8 of a second. Plenty of detail in there. Let's just wind it on. Okay, 1/8 of a second. And another one. There we go.
Well, it did actually get good focus on the central nettle, but the rest of the image was sadly not so well balanced, and the supporting foliage is a little bit messy and cluttered and doesn't really add anything to it. It takes your eye away, if anything.
I'll be honest, this is a bit of a slog. Less photography, more bushcraft. Now, I have been drawn on what initially appears to be a very simple composition of some silver birch trees set against a very bland sky. And there's only one thing that makes me want to shoot this, and that's the light. You see, the light is exceptional, it's diffused. It's not too directional. I haven't got too many harsh shadows, but the silver birch is standing out superbly there. And I have a little bit of sky in now. I've put the yellow filter on. to the hood, the excellent Bronica hood, which will darken down the sky slightly, and it'll also lift some of the foliage, so I'll get a benefit in two ways there. So let's just take a quick meter reading. I'm going for f16, only because some of the foreground foliage, I don't want it too blurry. It'll probably be a little bit blurry, but I don't want it really soft and get that harsh differential focus. So let's just take some nice little meter readings around those trees, which is what I really want. 60th, 30th, 60th, 30th with a yellow filter. I think 30th with the yellow filter should do me, because obviously I have a stop there, which I'm losing. Let's go for that 30th. One shot. Now I'm going to do one at a 15th in case I want an absolute ton of shadow detail. Fantastic.
Now the central silver birch themselves have come out rather nice, as I expected, with the light on them, and they cropped work, but for me the rest of the image doesn't support it. The foreground had to be burned in a little bit, and there's absolutely no sky at all.
Now, it would be fair to say that I am not super enthusiastic about the images I've shot so far this morning. I think they've been a little bit so-so, but you never know. They may be elevated slightly higher than that by a little bit of cropping or creative processing, only mild, of course. But the thing is, by coming out, I'm in the game. I've got a chance of getting something really good because I'm out. And whilst I'm taking shots, I am exercising that trigger finger, getting my metering skills up to scratch again, and generally just enjoying the whole art of a normal day's photography. It's not always bangs and whistles. Now, this is an example of a shot which just doesn't work with the naked eye when I viewed it as I walked along, but with my preview device, the beautiful light plants in the foreground here, coupled with a bit of overhanging foliage, really stood out and gave it a very graphic black and white effect. So, standard lens, f22, half a second and a second yellow filter. The only problem with these filter holders, they do tend to fall out if you knock them, so yeah, be careful.
Now, as I'd hoped for, this is a much more effective image than the first two. The lighter foliage in the bottom left has also been mirrored somewhat, or very slightly, in the top of the frame, so the brightness sort of takes you through into the centre, which is dark, which is the opposite of what I normally achieve, but I do like it.
Well, that's actually a good example of what I was talking about just a minute or so ago, where I said, you never know what you're going to come across, and if you're out, and there's a chance that you'll get something. Now, I'm actually more excited about that particular image than the other two put together. Can't wait to get it developed, that one. It's got potential. It's something I've never shot before, something nobody will ever shoot again, probably. And it's the sort of image which absolutely cries out for the square format. Now, the last time I was here with the XPan, you may remember, well, you might have to remember because it's the start of this video, but I took one shot, one scene, and I haven't developed the film. I can't be bothered. It's not something that excited me particularly. And I'm not developing a roll just for one frame, so probably have to shoot the rest of that roll in the XPan if I've still got it. Well, I've spent about 5 minutes studying this one, and I've tried various combinations with just this foreground branch coming down to these ferns, and also more of the tree with the second branch, obviously in a square format. But despite moving around a lot and changing my height of my viewpoint, it's just not working, so I'm moving on. Well, I've come across another delightful scene which looked nothing to the naked eye, but the preview device made it really pop in black and white. Let me just talk you through it. See, what we have is almost like a tunnel effect. Let me get you where the camera is. We have a tunnel effect with this bright foliage here leading into these trees. Now, two of them, very fortunately, are crossing over, and we have some more bright foliage at the top, giving that sort of feed into the shot, which works superbly in square format. Now, unusually, I've put on my wide-angle lens. Now, I'd normally shoot this particular scene at the standard 80mm focal length, but I wanted a bit more of the foliage and I wanted the tree tunnel effect to recede more in, so I get greater separation with the wide-angle, less compressed than with the normal lens. Now, I've metered it to around about 1/4 of a second, but given that I've got black and white film and it loves overexposure, I am going to go for 1/2 a second here, which gives me plenty of exposure, but also will have no trouble holding the highlights in these relatively dull conditions.
Now this final one has a sort of reverse vignette for me. Normally I darken the corners of the image, but I knew at the time I took it that the edge of the frame was very light, so I've played that up. And again, it leads you into that sort of tree tunnel. And again, it's absolutely perfect in the square format.
Now you may also have noticed in that shot I had no filter on the lens. Now the reason is shutter speed. There was movement in the foreground, and if I was going to go for a second, that'd be just too long. So that's me for the morning. Now, not a spectacular day's haul by any means, but a good one, far better than when I was out in similar conditions with the XPan, and that's just because my eye is more attuned to the square format. I think it suits the forest better, and I'll be totally honest, I much prefer working with this camera. It's a delight to use on a tripod, superb. So, thanks for coming along as ever, and I'll see you again on the next one.